All right, so welcome to another recording of what we have lovingly named the Slate Preferred Presentations. I am part of a group today that's going to be chatting about the different Slate communities with my extraordinary friends who will introduce themselves in one moment. But this is from the virtual Slate Summit 2025, and I do want to say that we actually did this session like several months ago, so if we seem like a scooch rusty, it's because we are. But we also thought that that would add a little flavor of authenticity to it. So, you want to be a Slate community contributor? We do have an icebreaker today because we wanted it to feel like a community conversation. So, as we introduce ourselves, we will also be adding in the first question that we asked or answered and where.
Hi, I'm Megan Story. I've been working in Slate for 7 years. I was at Reworkflow when this session was accepted. So you will still see that branding on these slides, but I'm currently at NYU's Office of Global Programs, which handles anything that is or just kind of feels like study abroad at NYU. Um, my first question in community was so long ago, I could never tell you what it was, but it was for sure in the community forums. So I can share that piece. On my next slide, you'll see a beautiful picture of my dog. I am especially active in the community forums and Slack. If you want to find me there, I am a community ambassador. So I really do try to participate and help out.
I'm Katie. I am the oldest Slate user here, which is embarrassing. I have been active in Slate for 10 and a half years. So my background is small liberal arts colleges, moved to consulting about 4 years ago. So you can find me as the senior director of Slate strategies with the Parish Group. So as I said, background admissions, but consulting has pushed me into essentially everything Slate. My puppies are not in costume, but they are still extremely cute. You also do, good news, run the risk of hearing them today. I am the co-leader of the New England Slate users. I'm mostly on Facebook. Sometimes I'll write things for the forums. But my first Slate community engagement was both asking and answering questions on Facebook.
Hi, I'm Eric Hoffpauir. In case you've seen my name or weirdly spelled last name, cat's out of the bag. It's pronounced Hoffpauir. I'm the baby slate user of the group. I started in 2022. I was previously on a slate team with a larger institution, but since this past January, I've been a solo captain at the American University of Paris. I'm a community ambassador like Megan. Since 2024. I first had a community engagement in the Facebook group. I believe I asked a really weird question about a case statement, using a case statement and a filter um, to try and get something. And Carol Severa said, why don't you just use a regular subquery existence filter? And that worked much better. I do live in Manhattan, Kansas, not in Paris. But I love to travel, read, and play dorky video games, which I think all jibes pretty well with my current role at the American University of Paris. Just a little bit about that university, since you may not know it well. It's an American-style liberal arts curriculum at a university that happens to be in the heart of Paris, the heart of Paris. Also the art of Paris. There's a bunch of art there. Um, go ahead and go to the next slide. That's fine. And to emphasize heart of Paris, it's right in between the Eiffel Tower and Invalides and the Seine, if you know anything about Paris, right there in the middle in the shadow of the Eiffel Tower.
Just bragging.
Yeah, a little bit.
Megan, I think I'm asking you the question, what are the Slate communities?
The answer's on the next slide, Katie. And we're going to be touching on these 6 areas today. Most of these are overseen by Technolutions, some are user-led. One is the knowledge base, which you might be wondering, how is that even a community? And I'll dive into that a little later.
So, first and also best, may I say, the community forums. It is found on the right-hand navigation bar of your instance. So anywhere you see the star, if you click on it, you can click to Slate Community. It takes you right to the forums. It is fantastic for everything user knowledge. You can message people, you can ask questions, there's Get Inspired posts, and there's user groups. So let's dive into all of that. So there's a ton here, right? Like, let's acknowledge that there is a ton here, and I am only diving into four of the areas today. But just to kind of orient yourself a little bit, this is what we'll be chatting through. So the messages, questions, groups, and get inspired posts. So one thing, if you're looking very closely, you may notice there is both a light mode and a dark mode. I am mostly a dark mode girly, but it seemed fun to mix it up and show everything. Within messaging, you can connect with other users, and you will also get email notifications if somebody sends you a message. Group messaging is fairly new. You can also see that I'm looking up how to message Eric right now. So, one thing that is important to note here is Eric has opted in to receiving messages. You do absolutely have the control to turn yourself off of being, I believe, both searchable and messageable, but definitely at least messageable if this is not your preferred communication style. You can, as I said, ask questions here. So you can start by searching across the different forums. So those are slate.org, admissions and enrollment, student success, and advancement. And you can also, when you are browsing, decide that, okay, like none of the things here are answering what I need to know. So you can create a new question. And one of the first things you need to decide is which category that your question fits into. I also think it's kind of just fun to see what is trending, what is new, what people are upvoting, because it keeps me aware of where people are feeling stuck. User groups are, I think, one of the coolest parts of the community forum. So something you can see here is that they are innately divided into two different groups. So we have regional user groups and we have functional user groups. So regional is going to be based on where you live, and functional is going to be based on the different parts of your job. If you are attending, or if you attended, summit, depending on when you are watching this, all affinity groups will have time to connect in person. The majority of them will also have virtual meetings or different ways to get involved online. Different groups also meet up in person, like the PA Slate user group has had summit, their own mini summit every May for years now. It is a really, really cool free resource just to plug that fantastic work. Again, my strong bias comes through. But the best group is, of course, the New England Slate users because I get to run it with Tara Lindros. If you have not met her, she is incredible. But I do want to say that affinity groups are a really nice way to connect with people if you are kind of feeling overwhelmed by the fact that we're like, there are six Slate communities, pick some. This immediately lets you know that you have something in common with these people. Get inspired posts. I actually worked really hard on this screenshot because I wanted to highlight three people I think are absolutely fantastic in this community. So we have Lloyd, we have Chris Klein, we have Paul Turchin. They are all doing fantastic work, and they are also sharing all of it with you. So the Get Inspired part of the community forums is where super users will post wins that they've had. They usually have suitcases along with them. So it is a really cool place to grab some stuff, bring it right into your instance, and see what you can do to make your users' lives better. Bonus content. Something you can do if you are super duper cool is actually set up to get a little notification in your email every time Alexander Clark comments anywhere if you are like fully in this not a cult. But the other one that I do really recommend is getting a notification every time the Technolutions like last week newsletter is posted. And I also just worry that my incredible friends are not going to brag about themselves enough, and they should. My gosh, look at these contributors. They're so smart, they're so beautiful. And now that's recorded forever.
I think this might be a good place to mention community ambassadors because we talked a little bit, both Megan and I, about being community ambassadors. And you might see them most visibly with a badge in the community forum. It looks exactly like that green thing there. A community ambassador, these are Slate super users who volunteer in the community. Um, they're usually out like providing tips or connecting people to resources, but they're not Slate staff. These are volunteers. Community ambassadors have to be vetted. You generally have to go through an interview process, and they're going to review your past contributions, select staff members. You have to be currently at a Slate client. Like you have to be employed by a university or a community organization or high school or something. You can't be at a preferred partner, which is basically the only thing keeping Katie out at this point.
That's fair.
You have to have extensive experience. You have to know your stuff. And you also have to enjoy like helping people. You have to lift up other people because you'll be doing it a lot. We're here to support each other in general, and community ambassadors are exceptional at that, generally speaking.
I would
Uh,
call you and Megan extraordinary at that.
so you don't get paid. It is a volunteer thing, but it's really an acknowledgement. So you get a badge in the community forum. You also get a little special badge on like your summit badge as well. You get a little note there. You get check-ins regularly with Technolution staff, so you get to meet with other community ambassadors and some staff, and generally a sneak peek at times into products and insight to what's coming out or features that might be rolling out. Like we got a sneak peek at the community forum before it was actually available to all users. And you do get a special access to a shared community ambassador tested instance of Slate. So you can go play there on specific approaches in Slate with other community ambassadors. So if you're interested in this, I would look at that link and then just express your interest and see where it takes you.
I dragged our images up for a moment just to make sure the link shows.
Okay, so another area in Slate besides the forum that Technolution manages is Slate Feedback. So this is a place where you get to propose modifications or new functionality that doesn't exist. Um, it's Go ahead and go to the next slide.
Oh, of course, I'm sorry.
Yeah, sure. So it's located if you're anywhere in the Slate world on a Slate website, you have that light bulb on a piece of paper icon that's your shortcut there. Or you can go directly to that URL. You will have to log in. It's not allowed for people who are not current Slate users to be able to access. Um, Sorry, can you go back one?
Yeah, I'm doing terribly at this. My apologies.
It's okay. It's laid out pretty easily. Like there's a bar on the side where you can go to click add new idea or go into different categories. You can search across the top for any idea upcoming. So go ahead to the next slide. So the most popular idea ever, if you have any familiar with what people have asked in general or across the community, is the ability to query the audit log. You will see that over and over again. And it's reflected here in the feedback form. You have that upvoted 751 times and 89 comments on that over years. And yet it's still here in the feedback forum, not in production. So it does give you a sense that just because we ask for it like democratically, we don't always get it. And there are reasons for that. This may be just a difficult thing to pull off for Technolutions, and they need to focus on other great features they want to release to us. So if you have your own idea that you think would be useful, search first because someone may have already come up with that and added their own great post that you want to support. So you can just throw that idea, for example, here, workflows for form responses, not a person or application scoped workflow. You can just put it in the search bar and search for it. And you'll come up with a list of ideas that may apply or may not. Right there, you can see that exists already. And there you just select it, and you can see that there's on the left-hand side, you have the opportunity to vote for it. You can see I've already voted for this one. It's colored in blue, dark blue around the voted button. And you can see there's an admin response there. They've already seen this idea and said that they're working on it, they're developing it. So you want to go ahead and vote that up and then go ahead and add your own comment and support. Really try to get into your own use case that might be similar or different from what others have already proposed in the past and give additional context for Technolutions to say, we want to go ahead and develop this for this reason. And it may connect to other features as well if they're thinking about it. Okay, if your idea does not exist currently, then you can go ahead and add a new idea. It's pretty self-explanatory here how to do it. You fill in your title, you fill in some details, you choose a category. So for here, we have you're at start of your university. You love your Junimos, your flying Junimos for your school mascot, and you want to give excitement to all your users on release day and let them know that your decisions are out the door virtually to on their way to accepted students. So write that up.
Can't believe that was nerdy there.
Um, so once you have your idea out there, if you see other ideas that other people have already put out, go ahead and spread them. Don't be afraid to ask for support for those ideas. Paste that link in any community space and ask for votes and ask for people to add their own use case. Do this especially if you see someone posting about this in the community forum already or in other community spaces. So just answer anything that anyone's posted. If you know it has to do with a feedback request that you know exists, just ask them to upvote it and add their content.
So the Slate knowledge base is available from your Slate instance, and hopefully that is a resource that you've all looked at. But we will do a quick overview just in case. So here we are, we can search, that's very straightforward. If the person manning the slides would click again, we can see that we can also explore by category, which can be very helpful. For instance, let's say that you know that your institution's website is going to be overhauled in the near future. Well, maybe you just explore the entire branding category. So you start building out that framework of knowledge for yourself. That way, as you go to update your branding within Slate to match your new website once that launches, you already have some of that knowledge and be able to focus in on any troubleshooting you need to do. In addition, there's also the glossary. If you are having trouble finding things when you're searching for them and you feel like you just don't have the right terminology for it, you can check out the glossary. And if we click again, we'll see in a screenshot of what that can look like. Essentially, it's defining the terminology as Technolutions defines it, which can be very helpful at both as you're searching the knowledge base and as you're interacting with the community to have a sense of kind of what's the general understanding of what these terms mean, because we all know that our institutions have those weird quirks where we use a term the way no one else on the planet uses that term. So it can be helpful to kind of get your bearings and get some of the common language that's used by the others in the community. Also, on or in every article, there are some useful things to note. Here, we're looking at one of my favorite articles, Inbox Enhancements. If you're using Inbox, you should know about this article because these aren't enhancements, these are inbox essentials. But beyond that, under the Inbox Enhancements title, you'll see here that it says updated 18 July 2024. And so that can be really helpful to check as you are looking at an article to have a sense of how up to date is this, because maybe something feels a little off or outdated. And then you go in and see, oh, this was last updated 2 years ago, but I know they've done more recent work on this feature. So that is something to pay attention to. But if it was updated last week, oh, this is the most up-to-date information. But also, there's something really fun at the bottom of every inbox article. We have this question: was this article helpful? And it has a thumbs up or a thumbs down. And if we click the thumbs down, we then get this feedback form. And so don't worry about giving the thumbs down, because I know that feels harsh, but it's the only way you can access this feedback form. And I promise, people at Technolutions have told me that they really appreciate feedback here. Their feelings aren't hurt by the thumbs down. So if you see, for instance, something that's outdated or typos or whatever, or if you just think, it would be helpful if an example was added to this knowledge base article. All it's giving are the instructions, but you're having trouble understanding a use case, you can put that information here. If the more specific you can be, the more detailed, the better. You also have the option of putting your email address here or not. If they have questions about the feedback you've provided and you don't put in your email address, they won't be able to reach out to you. So keep that in mind. The last way that you can interface with the knowledge base is through Slate AI, which you can access by clicking that 3-star icon. And we have an example here. So here we can see that I put in a prompt and it responded and gave me the information I needed. However, I will say that I, as a human being with Slate experience, knew that instead of there at the bottom where it says check out the troubleshooting deliver page, I really wanted this to take me to the knowledge base article on query string parameters. And I'm a little disappointed that the Slate AI didn't get me there. However, you'll notice in step 3 here, it did say appending with existing query strings. So the AI here did give me some terminology I could use that maybe I wasn't aware of at first, that then if I searched that, it would probably get me where I needed in the knowledge base. So while we all know that AI isn't perfect, it can get you down the road towards getting what you needed. But I will say, if there are situations where the knowledge base definitively says you can or cannot do something, and then the AI is saying something different, I urge you to trust the knowledge base. The AI does not know better. Um, so yeah.
I think that's fair.
Okay, now we're on to the first of our spaces that's not directly managed in any way by Technolutions. And that is Facebook. That Alexander doesn't own Facebook. Um, so it's also the year 2025, and I realize most of you are familiar generally with the workings of Facebook, so we're not going to get too much into all of that. But I just do want to focus on a few points that are helpful, specifically of how we can use this to find each other and more information about how to use Slate. Okay, so this Facebook group has been accessible longer to pretty much anyone who wanted access to it for a long time. So up until recently, only people with very high level access in an instance had access to the forum. You basically had to be a Slate captain to really do much in the forum and interact with articles and other people. The Facebook group has allowed people who were processors or sent out messages but didn't have any database. They sent out deliver mailings, but not they didn't have access to, administrative privileges for the instance. And it also generally has features specific to Facebook groups that are pluses and minuses depending on how you interact with them. So one bonus for that having being accessible to a wider group for a longer period of time is there is a lot of historical knowledge on there. So you can go in and search and find how to do things um, in Slate in a way that you couldn't necessarily do on the forum or directly spelled out even in a knowledge base article. Um, and you can find people willing even to go back years later and you can ask a question in a thread in response to an old question, and people who were on that thread before will pop back in and answer your question. So we have our own very own Katie Jordan here popping in with some very helpful screenshots even on how to do a percent to goal report.
Oh,
And
nice.
that's, when you're, especially when you're starting out, that stuff is super valuable. You also have a lot of chats that grow up. So some people love them, some people hate them. They can be overwhelming because people will have a quick back and forth, and your notifications can start kind of going off the chart. That can be not so fun, but it is nice sometimes to get that quick, direct back and forth. And you can have side chats that come off of the chats as well. So you can get into basically a smaller group of people talking about a very specific topic quickly. The anonymity is a nice feature as well. You get to ask more cultural questions that you might not feel comfortable just throwing out there on, say, the community forum. You may not on the forum, your name is always associated with anything you post. So if, for example, you don't want like your VP knowing that you're interested in um, a slate captain in general, like at another position at another university, you might want to post anonymously on the forum. Despite the anonymity, people do keep it pretty professional, I have to say. I don't know if that's the moderators just doing a great job or people just in general being professional, but generally people keep on topic and keep it with more things like this. You can also ask questions that you're afraid. Sometimes in the community, you don't want to out yourself as like expose yourself as asking like what you think may be a dumb question. It gives you license to ask a question anonymously and not have people think, oh, why didn't they know that? That's not how the community generally is. People don't really go think of each other as dumb. We're all learning. We're all trying to figure things out. I forget things all the time. Um, but some people, I don't know, they like that anonymity to do that as well.
The Slack group, just like the Facebook group, is user-led. It is somewhat more technical in focus. So there may be times where a question gets asked in that group and someone responds that it may be a better fit elsewhere. That is not a hand slap or a negative thing. That is truly someone saying, I think you're going to get better engagement with this question elsewhere, and they're trying to help you get maybe the information or the sort of engagement you're looking for. So that is something to be aware of with the Slack group. So our next slide, we have a screenshot of the Slack group in dark mode. And you can search the Slack community just like the other communities we've shown. One thing to note is because this is a user-led community, we are using the free version of Slack, which means that information after 90 days goes beyond the veil in our Slack group, which is great. It means you're going to get super relevant and up-to-date information when you are interacting here. However, if you find something great, if you find some little like snippet of code or some like step-by-step instructions about making something work for you, just saving it for yourself here in Slack is not going to be it. So you'll want to take screenshots and save elsewhere in your Slate Dragon hoard of goodies so that you can retain that information. Um, if we go back, um, you can see here we have an example of a post with replies. You can see little avatars of who's been engaging with that post. If you have responded to a post, you can go take a look at the post that you've been engaging with under the threads link. And for the most part, posts are organized within channels. So you kind of want to stick to a channel that's relevant to the question you're asking. I realize sometimes it might be hard to choose because you are maybe working with a process where you have a portal that has embedded forms and you're having an issue with something with the form. Are you asking that in the forms channel or the portals channel? Just pick one and go with it. It will be fine. If you feel like it's a dumb question, you can put it in no dumb questions. So that is really up to you. And for things that are off topic, there is random. If you are looking for job listings or information, maybe about user group meetups, those would be in the professional development channel.
Can I, while we're here, share the fun fact that you taught me very recently?
Sure.
It does not stand for professional developers. That is not where you put your code.
That is correct.
We are all
Yes.
learning together. And a great place to do that is community conversations. Look at that. So kind of just similarly where to find this, if you click on home slate, anywhere you see the little star on your right-hand navigation, it will probably no longer push Las Vegas, unfortunately, but it will take you to home slate, and then you can use the left navigation to get to community conversations. If your immediate question is, what is a community conversation? Exciting news. Technolutions has already provided a very handy little frequently asked questions just to help you, get your feet wet a little bit. If you are back on the tab looking for upcoming conversations, this gives you a little bit of an overview there are some regularly scheduled ones, like the getting started with admissions and advancement, with admissions and enrollment. There are some that are led by partners. The post captain consulting is here. But things like Ask Nicely, You Need Permission are a little bit more specialized and don't happen super regularly. So if you see something that looks cool to you, you click the little green box calendar thing on the side and register. They are usually hosted by Technolutions, but it is a fantastic way to meet people. Technolutions will tell you they are purposefully not recorded. The thought is that so people can comfortably ask questions, share their screens, get into their instances, all of that stuff. Like 3 hours ago when we started talking, we said that we had an icebreaker at this in order to mimic a community conversation. So this is where that inspiration is coming from. It's really fun to get to know people outside of work. And also shout out to community conversations because that's where Eric and Megan and I like met because we were just making jokes all the time. And I don't know how we got from there to here, but darn it, it does happen. Um, a fun fact, because heaven forbid I simply talk about something without saying fun fact. If you are in the community forums and you click on event and webinar resources, you can actually request your own community conversation. So propose a topic that you would like Technolutions to talk about, but you can also ask to lead one yourself. If you are, for example, Megan Story and you have a love of inbox metadata, that is how this one came to be. Okay. Fantastic question. Thank you so much for asking it. We wanted to do a couple hypothetical troubleshooting questions just to share about how we are looking to answer questions across all of these different platforms. So we did make these up, but they are general representatives of questions that we all see and answer.
I'll start us off with the first question, which you might see out in any of the community spaces, but why can this faculty member see this review bin? I want to step back a second and just talk about whether I'm asking or responding to a question, what my mindset is. So I'm always thinking that other people will likely read this later because they might go searching for a similar question in whatever community space. And this question and answer conversation that may occur, because let's face it, sometimes when you ask a question, there's going to need to be some clarification to get to the real point. We all have our own kind of customized situations in our instances. So that conversation is going to create a documentation for other people to read. So if you should expect questions. You should not expect people just to immediately have the answer, although that happens for sure. And you should expect to see screenshots, and you should expect people to ask you for screenshots as well. So this question itself is kind of vague. Why can this faculty member see this review bin? It's not clear what the end goal this person is looking for. Do they want to help someone at their university also see this particular bin? Or is someone seeing something they shouldn't and they want to take that permission away? So if it's the first one, another faculty member needs to see the bin. You need to think through if they're in legacy reader using workflows. So might ask that. What reader permissions does the original faculty member have? And if you look at the actual reader bin, what read permission is set there, if any? And it's similar for if you're trying to remove that, you may need to remove that access. Um, are they on legacy? What reader permissions do they actually have right now? And what custom read permission is set on the bin? So you check that read permission. There's a screenshot. You can see there it has the program director
Sorry, I feel like I
and
was
the
going on
custom
a
read.
roll with getting my timing and
And and you also need to think through maybe the context too. The word faculty usually means you're not, generally speaking, you're going to try and limit your faculty their view within a particular bin, not to you don't want to have like a million bins for all your different departments or something like that. You want to have one or select bins and then have a population restriction on that. So check the populations, and you can see there um, that that's clicked there, and then you just add that same permission, copy that to another faculty member, and that would grant them the access.
okay.
Done.
Um,
Answered.
why doesn't this record have the right staff assignment? Another excellent question. So I have a lot of questions, like Eric. I don't have an immediate answer here because we need to think first and foremost about the structure of the rules. Are we looking at person, application, or organization? How did you find the problem, and what troubleshooting steps have you already taken? There's also a lot of potential answers because we could be dealing with multiple query bases, a higher priority rule, a weird or unusual rule trigger, staff turnover, or maybe just an unhealthy query on the rule itself. So going through each of these, generally speaking, having multiple bases within one, someone help me, I'm blanking. Um, oh no. Exclusivity group, thank you all.
Got it.
Right, we got there. Having multiple bases within one exclusivity group can just generally cause confusions with your roles needing to fire in order. So one staff assigned field should generally equal one base person. And then you would want higher priority rules to say, okay, if this is their rank one application, then this, but if this is their person later on, then this. Is a higher priority rule locking it in? So in our exclusivity group, and a person can only have one value, a high priority rule could simply stop a student from going further down the processes. If this is something that you are running into where a student is hitting a staff assigned locked or a different staff assigned priority, I actually recommend taking yourself out of Slate and just drawing out on paper on one of those giant whiteboards how you want your rules to be prioritized. Something that is a really nice example is going to be an international transfer student. A lot of schools will have staff that's focused on transfer students, and a lot of schools will have different staff focused on international students. So, for an international transfer, which one of those identities is the more important fit for staff assigned? The rule trigger has two different options here. So you can do an upon update when a student has a change made to their record data, or upon person update overnight processing. So after an update is made on a record, that rule will run overnight in the 2 to 4 a.m. window. So if it's set to run overnight, the change is simply not going to happen during the day. Um, Staff turnover happens if you have inactivated a user but not yet updated the students assigned to them. The name at the bottom of the rule will show as a blank, and it will very much cause hiccups the next time the student takes any kind of action and they run through their staff assigned rules. I'm not going to dive too much into query. I'm not going to dive at all into query health today. But generally being aware of minimizing or statements within your rules and making sure that your joins are simplified is just a great way to make sure that, your queries are healthy, and that'll just help your rules to run more smoothly, more efficiently. So almost always with, why isn't the student assigned where they should be? You know where they should be, but Slate has been told to build otherwise. So this troubleshooting is one of my very favorite places in Slate. Ahem. If you navigate to database and then rules and then rule groups and then person probably and then staff assigned, which is the exclusivity group name, and then click on view logic, you are taken to this extremely cool screen where you can put in either a record number or a type of person's name, and it'll show you the rules in order of where the student is hitting.
So why is this report showing X number instead of Y number? Let's dig in. So just like Katie and Eric, I'm gonna start with some questions here. I'm sorry, I wish I had an immediate answer for you, but I don't. So I'm gonna start with two questions that are closely related. What are you trying to count, and what query base is your report on? This is important because sometimes, in fact, often, in admissions offices, people are building out funnel reports that they want to start from the time someone is a prospect. So they're starting from the person base, but then they're wanting to count things like inquiry forms that were filled out, or events that were attended, or applications that were started or submitted. So that is one thing to note, because whatever your query base is, inherently that is what Slate's going to be counting. So we're going to have to think about how we count those other things. So it's just going to make the report a bit more complex. The third question is important, and it's how are you deriving the number that you're expecting? So you're saying you're seeing X, but you expected Y. Well, where did Y come from? Is it another query or report in Slate? Great, that's going to be really easy. We're going to open that up, compare that to what you've got going on, and figure it out. But my guess is that oftentimes that Y is coming from another system on campus. It's coming from your student information system. It's coming from Tableau or Power BI or a data warehouse. Then the thing to keep in mind is, hey, the data you have in Slate is like living and breathing and changing all the time, whereas the data that you have somewhere else in another campus system may be more static and only being updated once a day, once a week, whatever. The third possibility that you might come to me with is like, well, the dean just feels like the number is Y. And I am not here to question deans, VPs, provosts, presidents, chancellors. They got where they are uh, through hard work and lots of intelligence, right? Their vibes are immaculate. but like we can't expect our Slate instance to have those vibes, right? So we need to keep in mind like how realistic is it for us to match that Y? But let's dig into what an example could look like. As we go to the next slide, we will see an example of an itty bitty little report that I built in Reworkflow's test instance back in the day. And let's say that the question you're coming to me with is, hey, the biology program isn't accepting applications for fall 25. So how is there an application showing up here? And we see that it's just one. Well, when we are dealing with numbers like this, the easiest thing to do is to dig into our report and add another export. And on the next slide, we would see an example of that. So we, under our application major, which was what was showing the biology communications economics there, we added in a person reference ID export. And that way we can come in, click on biology. It shows us the ref ID of the person with that biology application. We can go check out that record, figure out what happened there. Maybe they were a deferral from last year. Maybe they're the president's nephew, and so they got admitted by exception. There is most likely some sort of business process explanation for why they're showing up here. But Megan, you're saying, my reports don't look like this. I have dozens, hundreds, thousands in my report. It's not practical for me to be digging through the reference IDs here. I entirely agree with you. And so that's why we're gonna build a query. And when we build a query, we are going to have to keep in mind, we need to put in that query, we need to account for in that query anything in that report that may be impacting the results that we're seeing. So we have filters like this not a test record up at the top level of the report. If we click, we will see, we will have more examples here, hopefully. Okay, good. So we can have filters on the columns in our reports. We can have filters on the export section in our report. And we can have filters in any subquery exports as well. Hopefully that's what you're seeing here as we move along. It's okay, you know, everybody, this is what happens. Okay, so moving along to the next slide. Yes, you did it. So if we accounted for everything in the report, then we have our beautiful query. And then this is where we can dig in. Maybe you know, hey, these records should be showing up in the report. And you can start throwing in their ID or GUID or whatever in your filters. Are they showing up the way you expect? Hey, these shouldn't be. Well, then maybe we start, you know, tinkering with our filters, figuring out, you know, this, when this is active, everything's showing up the way I expect. When I inactivate it, it's not, you know, kind of doing that back and forth granular troubleshooting to figure out, is everything doing what I think it should be doing? And then once you figure out, oh, you know what, I realized what happened here. I needed to, you know, change the subquery filter to a not exists instead of an exists or something. You can go then make that change on a report and feel confident that it is working the way it should be. We do have some resources for helping yourself troubleshoot reports before you go to the community. This could be really nice if you are coming to the community to let them know, I have already gone through the steps listed here or there. That way people won't waste their time and your time by bringing up the troubleshooting techniques from these spaces.
I think that that may, oh, haha. So I think that's completed our slides, and it did. Woo! That goes to our slides. That also goes to a little RFI in case you have questions. But yeah, we did it. Woohoo!